And we're back, folks, here on WWE Network and Chill. I am Graham G.S. Matthews after reviewing the first 10 episodes of Season 1 of WWE Breaking Ground on the WWE Network right here on the show. Today we're talking about the Reloaded special of Breaking Ground that aired immediately following the TakeOver The End special a few months back. In just an amazing 1-hour special. Really, I'll just sum that up. Listen to the rest of this review, but in a nutshell, this special was just absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to talk about it. So this takes place, I want to say, 6 months after the season finale of Breaking Ground, Season 1, Episode 10, that kind of capped off and concluded with TakeOver Respect in early October of 2015. This special of Reloaded takes place in April of 2016, right around the time of TakeOver Dallas in early April. So 6 months have passed. A lot of the people on the show, which we'll talk about, Apollo Crews, Bayley, especially Tyler Breeze, Baron Corbin, loved Preety, even Enzo and Cass, who weren't really on Breaking on Season 1, but they still got a mention here, and a cool moment with them at the end. But a lot of these people are in a very different place than they were 6 months earlier. So that's why this special is really, really cool and kind of looking back on all the progress made by a lot of the people that were prominently featured throughout the show in Season 1 of Breaking Ground. So first and foremost, though, I will mention this. I love this special, but one of the things, not that I hated about it, but one of the takeaways for me was that William Shatner is not narrating, which just feels weird to me. I think it was one of those things, I didn't really talk about it that much. I think I probably talked about it in the season premiere of the show, way back when in episode 1 a few months ago. But he really helped make this show. I really thought William Shatner as the narrator was perfect. WWE put up some behind the scenes video on their YouTube channel, I think, a while ago of him doing, voiceovers. And he doesn't really watch the product. He's good friends with some people in the company, including Jerry Lawler. But it's not like he's, obviously very knowledgeable when it comes to NXT, but it made it sound like he was, and kind of getting to know these people and then doing the voiceovers and whatever else. I thought it was perfect. So he was a really, really strong narrator for the first 10 episodes of the show. He's not brought back for whatever reason. I feel like this was not done at the last minute. It wasn't like it was filmed a week before and it aired a week later, right after TakeOver The End. They had this in the can for about 2 months, so I don't know if Shatner wasn't available or what, but they had some other guy do it instead. And he's still good, but it just doesn't feel the same after watching the first 10 episodes on the network, kind of binge-watching those over the past couple of months. But anyway, so we move forward, and obviously I feel like there's no really better person to kick off the Reloaded special with than Tyler Breeze, who we ended with in Season 1, Episode 10 of the show when he got called up to the main roster. And they're not going to flat out admit, oh, he's been a disappointment, he's been a failure, he's been on Superstars. They did not mention he's been garnering much success on the main roster, but even Tyler Breeze has said he's living out his dream. He gets to compete at WrestleMania in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and obviously take over the Dallas, which is kind of the host of this Reloaded special, is the same weekend as WrestleMania. So those two obviously have a lot of history together. Those two, Tyler Breeze, take over WrestleMania. They all kind of coexist. And then in the same weekend that TakeOver is having their Dallas special, only 2 days later, is WrestleMania 32. So he's at WrestleMania 32 after only being called up a few months earlier. It's a big moment for him. I feel like he should have been in the ladder match at WrestleMania, but whatever. So I feel like I said at the end of, in my episode 10 review of Breaking Ground, and that they really should be doing more with him. I mean, sky is blue, what else is new? But I really feel like they should be doing a lot more with him just because he's so talented. And anyone who has watched NXT for any stretch of time would know what I'm talking about. If you've only seen him on the main roster, you might not know how great he truly is, but You'll know greatness when you see it, and Tyler Breeze is an absolute star. So anyway, so he's adjusting to the main roster. It's kind of like the focus of his brief segment here, how he's adjusting from NXT to the main roster, because it's a big jump. When he got called up, he got introduced to all the main roster guys, and you're touring all the time. You're not touring every few weeks, and you're on TV pretty much every other week, and he's on Superstars, the main event, but it's still TV technically, so it's a big adjustment from NXT to the main roster, and they're kind of showing his progress from developmental to the WWE main stage in only the span of a few months. So they go from Tyler Breeze to Apollo Crews, who that same weekend got called up to Raw and then at the WrestleMania. But before that comes to the end of the episode. Beforehand, they're kind of focusing on his journey to his match at TakeOver with Elias Sampson, who they're not really mentioned by name. And the match itself is not on the TakeOver special. But they do kind of show his experience wrestling at Access and how it's Apollo Crews' first WrestleMania week, and he signed to the company a little less than a year earlier. He debuted in Brooklyn at the TakeOver special that August. He was in NXT for 6 to 8 months before having his first WrestleMania weekend at Access, wrestling against Samoa Joe, and then only to get called up later on, right after WrestleMania. I think that Saturday or right after TakeOver, that Friday, one of those two shows. But that same weekend, he was called up and being on Raw that very next Monday. So it's kind of cool to see. I'm going to talk more about his reaction to getting called up a little later on. We get a little bit more on Aaliyah, who kind of went under, was not overshadowed, but we didn't really hear much from her. Now that I think about it, I just got done reviewing the season 10 episode, like I'm doing these back to back, and they didn't really mention too much about Aaliyah in that season 1 finale. In that season 1 finale, they kind of spent more time focusing on the more established guys like Sami Zayn, American Alpha, Dana Brooke, Nia Jax, blah blah blah. Not so much Aaliyah, but in those 6 months that she's been down in NXT, she has made amazing strides. And at the time that this special was taped, she was having a match at Access against Carmella, and she had a pretty strong showing too, and she did really, really well for herself. Carmella is also making strides, and this is before she finds out that, actually it might be afterwards. I feel like it is before, though. I'm not exactly sure. But she's making strides on her own and competing against... It's definitely before, because they taped... No, when did they tape the Access shit? I feel like they taped it on Saturday, but I'm pretty sure they taped it before. I don't really know. But anyway, bottom line is that Aaliyah's come a long way. Her character's really improved. Her in-ring work is a lot better. She's not ready for TV just yet, but she's in a lot better of a place than she was 6 months earlier after that failed experiment, that failed tryout of sorts with William Regal and the rest of the roster. Like I said, Carmella's also adjusting to her singles career, and she had already been kind of doing her own thing by this point. Even while still with Enzo and Cass, she was kind of focusing on the NXT Women's Championship, so she's adjusting very well to the singles career in NXT before officially getting the news that she's being split up from Enzo and Cass. Tina Sabatelli, who was also a big part of Breaking Ground Season 1 and one of the few people that was unestablished coming into the show, but really came out of the show looking like a star. And after taking that advice to heart from Matt Bloom after that weird-ass match with Apollo Crews at one of the live events, has grown a lot. And he also has a match at one of the Accesses, not taped for TV, but he also has an Access match against Manny Andrade, or rather Andrade Cien Almas, as he's called now. But he has a really good showing. Matt Bloom, praises him for his performance, and it should be only a matter of time if not already. I mean, by this point, I'm recording this so far in advance, he might already be on NXT TV. I don't think so, but it should be only inevitable before he's on NXT TV, because the guy has the look, obviously, and the only real thing that he was missing was the in-ring work, but even that has come a long way from a few months earlier. Bayley is also, who was a major focal point of Season 1 of WWE Breaking Ground. We see a lot more of her on this show as she prepares for a match with Asuka at TakeOver Dallas. She's obviously very, very nervous, as she was for the Brooklyn match, for the Iron Woman match, but this match is on a completely different level, as she admits. Asuka is unlike any opponent that she's faced in the past, so she really has her work cut out for her here. She gets a brief interaction with Alundra Blaze, who is in the area for WrestleMania weekend. They have a cool little interaction backstage, and obviously Bayley is just over the moon by that, because she's a huge wrestling fan, is obviously a huge fan of Alundra Blaze. She talks a little bit about the triple threat and how weird it is that her three best friends, the three fellow of the Horsewomen, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch, are all a part of the triple threat at WrestleMania, and she's not. But she does know that she will be there at some point someday, and she really takes the title loss to heart. I mean, she loses the title that night to Asuka, and a lot like I talked about in the Season 1 finale of Breaking Ground. Baron Corbin took his loss in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, really took that to heart. Bayley does the same thing, even more so, because she's held that championship by this point for about 8 months, and she's really led this new revolution of sorts in NXT as the women's champion. And I mean, I felt like it was predictable, but I felt like that was the next logical step in her dropping the championship. And that's one thing. It's really weird for her to be not champion anymore. But even moreover than that, she kind of feels that maybe, she doesn't outright say this, but I'm feeling like she gets this sense that in dropping the championship, the main roster is next, but she doesn't get called up just yet. They probably, I mean, again, by this point, she might already be on the main roster. I have no idea. But she really has no idea what's for her at this point. After losing the championship and not getting called up, she doesn't know what she wants. And the weird thing is that you hear Balor say all the time, like, I don't even want to be in the main roster. I want to stay in NXT forever because it's so much fun. But then you hear from people like Sami Zayn and Balor, Bayley saying, it's been fun in NXT, but I want to get to that main level. I want to get to that main stage. I want to get to the next level in WWE, and that is Raw and SmackDown. Bayley is a huge proponent of that, and moreover than just being with her friends, moreover just being with the people that she was kind of trained with, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch. So that's kind of a cool dynamic. And like I said, she really takes a total loss to heart, and there's a lot of people backstage that are disappointed. She kind of cries a little bit after the match, but hopefully it is only a matter of time before we do see her on the main stage of WWE. Jason Jordan, the American Alpha, Chad Gable, they're just on a hot streak at this point after really winning over the NXT faithful over the past 8 months and really building to this amazing match with the Revival in Dallas, which is one of my personal favorite matches of 2015. They had a tremendous contest, a tremendous tag team affair. But Jason Jordan is really, like I talked about throughout Breaking Ground Season 1, that he's really found himself in this tag team with American Alpha, just building momentum. We do get this cool little shot of him, Chad Gable, talking to Corey Graves. You hear somebody talking off camera. I'm pretty sure it's Michael Cole talking to American Alpha about what they're going to call their finisher. And they give off the name Grand Amplitude. And I think that's the name they ended up using, but they also pitched the name Omegaplex. And Corey Graves says, I like Omegaplex. I think they went with a Grand Amplitude, I want to say, which is still a really, really cool name, but Omegaplex is even cooler in my opinion. But anyway, that's pretty interesting. And they get really, really emotional after they win the NXT Championships, the NXT Tag Team titles that night, in their amazing match, like I said, against Revival. Jason Jordan specifically, just because he had been there for so long, so a lot like Tyler Breeze, it really means a lot to him to finally hold gold in NXT, and he gets emotional in the ring, afterwards in a post-match promo. Chad Gable mentions how it means the world to him to be there for Jason Jordan's success, even more so than his own success, because he was happy to have shared that moment with Jason Jordan after 5 years of, or even more so than that, of busting his ass in developmental in WWE, which is pretty cool. After that, we hear from Sami Zayn as he prepares for the biggest weekend of his wrestling career at this point, facing Shinsuke Nakamura in Dallas. It's pretty cool that we see a lot of Shinsuke on this episode. I didn't think we really would, because obviously he wasn't a big part of Breaking Ground because he had just debuted at this point. But we don't hear from Nakamura, but we kind of get some focus on him. We see Triple H working on his entrance with him, which is really, really fucking cool. Triple H is like, do all your shit, get all your shit in, just take your time, just feel the moment. And he absolutely does. One of the greatest entrances of 2016, in my opinion. It still gives me chills just thinking about it. But Sami Zayn, obviously just talking about saying goodbye to NXT and his final match in NXT against Nakamura, only to wrestle for the Intercontinental Championship on a ladder match that Sunday at WrestleMania. So it really is just this bittersweet moment for Sami Zayn, going from, in my opinion, one of, if not his best match ever in NXT against Nakamura, to going to the main roster only 2 days later. So it really is great. I mean, he was already in the main roster at that point, but officially his first main roster pay-per-view, other than the Royal Rumble, was WrestleMania, which is pretty surreal. So we get a quick recap of his career in NXT as well. They show highlights of his debut, beating Cesaro, their amazing 2 out of 3 count falls match, winning the NXT Championship, returning from injury. So all these cool little moments that made Sami Zayn the heart and soul of NXT, and he really was for as long as he was there. So Baron Corbin, we see more from him, talking more about wanting to be called up, and how this performance against Austin Aries could make or break his career, and how all eyes are on him on this show. The decision is made beforehand by Triple H, and he talks to Matt Bloom, and he says, Baron Corbin's going up, and Matt Bloom, you hear him say, really? More like a surprise sense, or maybe he's just happy for him. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret that, but Baron Corbin just talking about how he wanted to be called up to the main roster, and ultimately he was, which I'll talk about in due time as well. But the decision is made before the show, so it's not like really anything that he did on the show kind of affected the decision to get him on the main roster. He was already a lock from the main roster even before the match with Austin Aries. He just wanted to have an extra special performance on the show just for the hell of it. And Triple H already knew by that point he was main roster bound, which was pretty interesting too. We hear from Lovepreet, who was kind of a minor character in Season 1 of Breaking Ground. We hear and see a little bit of him in the latter half of the show. But he makes his WWE debut, not on the main roster, but he did work a main roster show in India in front of tens of thousands of people. He makes his main roster debut at this cool little live event. The crowd goes crazy for him as they're, as an Indian native, they go nuts for him for their hometown hero, and he beats Jason Jordan, and he talks about how waking up as a normal guy and then going to sleep as just this superstar, having worked a WWE live event. But his road to superstardom has barely only just begun. He goes back to the performance center, is really, really training and working to get back to that next level and fulfilling, feeling that sense of success, that feeling of that sense of superstardom once again at some point. So we also see from a little bit more from Josh, who is now known as Bronson Matthews in NXT. He has yet to make his debut as well, but the former Tough Enough winner. We hear from him how he's training. Also, ZZ, who went down from 283 to 250. He looks to be in great shape. Obviously, also a work in progress, but he's made strides since arriving in NXT 2. When at the beginning of the show, he had awful cardio, and it's still not perfect, but has improved a lot and has lost a significant amount of weight as well. So, congrats to him. Triple H has the meeting afterwards, after the show. And, I mean, I'm not going to recap the entire Dallas show. Just check out my review of that show on nextwrestling.net. She plug. But they show recaps of pretty much every match in the show, the tag team title match. I already talked about like the biggest meanings, the biggest takeaway from each match. But Zayn Nakamura, the tag title match, Bayley and Asuka, the main event, or not the main event, every other match but the main event, because Balor and Joe weren't really on Breaking Ground too much. They didn't really show highlights of that match. But overall, obviously the show came off really, really well. Just an amazing event overall. It is a lot of fun. So Triple H praises the hell out of him. He says, "I told you guys to make it difficult for the main roster. I didn't say make it impossible." So they get a laugh out of that. They eat cake, which is cool. And then afterwards, Triple H talks to Baron Corbin, and we do not get the footage of that meeting, but he does say, "Just to let you know, guys, wish Baron Corbin congrats, or wish him good luck on Sunday as he prepares to enter the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal," and that gets a big round of applause from his peers, which is cool. But we do see the footage with, and the Vaudevillains weren't on the show at all. I mean, they weren't on Breaking Ground, I guess, but you would think that we would have seen footage of them, of Triple H talking about how they're going to be called up or whatever. So we see the footage of Triple H and Canyon Ceman and Matt Blue meeting with Apollo Crews, Enzo Amore, and Big Cass. Separately, Apollo Crews and then Enzo and Big Cass about being called up. And both guys, all three guys, are really, really emotional. Apollo Crews pretty much cries and how it really means a lot to him to see his father see him succeed. And he congrats, Matt Bloom and Triple H, and it's a really, really cool moment. Enzo and Cass, even more so just because they've been in NXT for a long, 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 long time. They really deserve to be on the main roster for a long time coming at that point. And Enzo could not be any more grateful in thanking Matt Bloom and thanking Triple H for all the opportunities they've been granted in NXT, and they're also ready for that next level. Big Cass is finally, after getting congratulated by Triple H, and Big Cass says, he talks about how, well, you congratulated us, but we didn't even wrestle tonight, so I was kind of confused about that. But anyway, Triple H also says, Carmella will not be coming up with you, but he explains that there's a reason for it. They're not splitting them up just for the hell of it. They're saying that they really want her to kind of be groomed as a future star in the women's division, not only in NXT, but in WWE. She has a bright future on her own. So they split her up from Enzo and Cass just so she can have a brighter future as a singles competitor in NXT, which was probably the best move in the end. And Enzo and Cass have been killing it in WWE ever since then. We hear from Dana Brooke a little bit, who ended season one injured, obviously, coming off her match with Asuka, which went really, really well for someone who had an injury. But she's been training, and she ended up getting called up, and like I said, she suffered the injury. She was out for 6 months, sprained her ankle. She was out for another 5, so she missed WrestleMania. I don't even think she was there. They showed footage of her training at the Performance Center, so I don't think she was even there WrestleMania weekend. She probably was. I feel like you have to be there if you're an NXT main roster talent, whatever. But from what it looks like, I couldn't see her in the like they have those meetings, like I said, after the shows, like when they ate cake and shit. I did not see Dana Brooke there, so I don't know. But she did getting called up. She made her return to the ring at the live event that I was at in Lowell, Mass. in April of this past year and had a good showing there in that tag team match before getting called up to the main roster only mere weeks later. So congrats to her on getting the call up as well. We hear, we have some other quick shots of Nia Jax meeting up with The Rock and almost breaking down in tears and wanting to one day get to that WrestleMania stage. And The Rock congratulating her on her success at that point. Zack Ryder, who was also not a huge part of Breaking Ground, but he kind of was for a majority of it, alongside Mojo Rawley and kind of reinventing his career in NXT as part of the Hype Bros. But he, after all the hard work that he puts in NXT, he finally gets his moment at WrestleMania 32 when he wins the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match in the opening match of the event, which means a lot for him. He gets a lot of congrats from Stone Cold Steve Austin, Scott Hall, everybody. Mojo Rawley talks about how, that's what dreams are made of, and he could not be any more right. So that was a really cool, heartfelt moment between the two as well. And Bayley, Carmella, we kind of end the show with those two talking about what's next. I mean, Carmella, they're both kind of having these bittersweet feelings. In Carmella's case, she wants to be in the main roster with Enzo and Cass, and that she's kind of sad about being split up from them. But at the same time, this opportunity presents itself, and that being split up from them, she now has a chance to kind of break out on her own and become a real player in the women's division. No longer split her time from focusing her time on being a manager and a women's wrestler. Now she can fully focus on becoming a big star in the women's division in NXT and then later on in WWE. And also we hear from Bayley, who talks about losing the championship and not yet getting called up. She really, 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 really wants to be in the main roster, but she has no idea what her future holds. So she gets some pointers and she hugs, Seth Rollins afterwards. We see a clip of those people, of those guys together, Bayley and Seth Rollins, and how, come up and join us on the main roster. You can win some gold up there, someday too. So that's pretty cool. But we do not know what's next for Bayley at this point in time, so I look forward to seeing what's next for Bayley. Coming out of this Breaking Ground Reloaded special, like I said, 20-minute review here because it is so freaking amazing. If you watch Breaking Ground, if you didn't watch Breaking Ground, I would recommend it. All the episodes, like I talked about, my past 10 editions of WWE Network and Chill, each and every one of them are amazing, so check it out. But this Reloaded special is really great. Like I said, the first time I watched it, I was on the verge of tears at least 3 or 4 times because there's a lot of people on the show that finally get their moment after working so hard throughout Breaking Ground Season 1, and specifically Baron Corbin, Tyler Breeze, Apollo Crews, Dana Brooke, Nia Jax, all these other people, Sami Zayn, who really worked their asses off to get where they are, and it's really paid off in a big way for all those talents. So I look forward to seeing what's next for a lot of these people going forward, and bottom line, we need a Season 2. Season 1 was so great, and arguably my favorite show ever on the WWE Network, up to this point anyway. And this Reloaded special is amazing. I love the Encore edition, and 6 months later where all these talents are, and it really goes to show that all of them can become stars and are stars currently. But we need a Season 2, hopefully with Shatner back as the narrator, because this show is so great, and hopefully we can get a focus and the shine spotlighted on the future talents of NXT. All the talents that are there now, like maybe even in Austin Aries. I know he's not really the future, but like guys like him, Samoa Joe even. Manny Andrade, Ty Dillinger possibly. Like I would love to see some more focus on those guys if and when a Season 2 of Breaking Ground is made. So like I said, guys, check out all of Season 1. It is amazing. This Reloaded special is just as excellent, so check it out on the WWE Network, and fingers crossed for Season 2 sooner rather than later. But in the meantime and in between time, you guys can follow me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. Find me on the Facebook page at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews, and right here on YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So until next time, guys. Oh, well, speaking of which, by the way, what will we doing next time? What will we be doing next time, actually? To answer your question, that's a tongue twister, but we talked all about Breaking Ground, all 10 episodes. We talked about Reloaded. So as SummerSlam weekend quickly approaches, I will be talking about, drumroll please, WWE 24 Brooklyn, the takeover special from last year. The 24 special, my favorite 24 special of all time. It's the Daniel Bryan one's great. The Seth Rollins one is amazing too, but I just love this one specifically just because I was at this show. So the next WWE Network and Chill episode will be focusing in my thoughts and recap and review of the WWE 24 Brooklyn special that aired last August it aired last fall, but it focused on last year's TakeOver Brooklyn show. And no better time to talk about it than coming off an amazing SummerSlam weekend. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.